Hello dear students, hope you all have watched yesterday's Victor's class. Let's go through the main concepts that were discussed in the Victor's class. In our online class itself, we started about, we first discussed about the term stimulus and distinguished them with internal and external stimulus. Hope you all understood and were able to distinguish between or differentiate between these two stimulus. Then in the second video class we discussed about receptors. Hope all of you understood that receptors are specialized neurons that can receive stimulus and generate a particular impulse. Receptors are also a part of the nervous system. Then we discussed about nervous system controls and coordinates stimulus impulse response action. Then the next main topic was about neuron or nerve cell and its structure. Hope you all wrote the structure in your biology notebook. Then this is the part of the neuron that was frequently asked in many of the question papers. So you must have to familiarize with the part of the neuron and its function. So this tabular column is much important to you when you face your exams. Then the last topic that we were discussed is on Schwann cells and oligodendrocytes. Then how can you compare a Schwann cell and oligodendrocyte? A Schwann cell is found in the myelin sheath that is present around the nerves, whereas an oligodendrocyte is present in the neurons of brain and spinal cord. In the picture itself you can see this blue colored rod is a axon of a neuron. Then you can see the axon is encircled with an oligodendrocyte. An oligodendrocyte encircles two axons of two neurons. Hence, oligo means many, dendro means part of the neuron, and cyte means cell. So, the cell which encircles more than two neurons or more than one neuron is known as oligodendrocyte, and that can be found in the myelin sheath of brain and spinal cord. Whereas Schwann cells are typical type of cells which you can see around the nerves while forming myelin sheath around nerves. So hope that the point is clear to you. Then we concluded last video class about the functions of myelin sheath. We discussed about the functions of myelin sheath. Of the 5 functions, one function is of much importance while discussing this chapter or the coming chapter. Which one was that point? That is, myelin sheath accelerate impulses. Then let us see about the other functions of myelin sheath. As this myelin sheath is formed of cells, you know the cells contain cell organelles such as mitochondria. Then what happens when a cell that have mitochondria is present around a neuron or present around the axon of a neuron? It can definitely provide nutrients and oxygen to the axon. Then again, it can act as an electric insulator. Just as like the copper wires are surrounded by plastic insulators, in the place of wires you can imagine that it is the axon of a neuron. The axon of the neuron is completely insulated or encircled by a myelin sheath. So it will not allow any other electric impulse to enter through the axon. So the impulse will travel only from dendrite, dendron, cell body, axon, axonite and synaptic knob. The direction of impulse will be in this direction, not from any other entry like axon or axonite or some points like that. The axon will not permit any electric impulse to enter through that part because the axon is encircled or axon is insulated by a myelin sheath. Then the next function is, since the myelin sheath covers the axon, it will provide protection to the axon as from external shocks. So the axon is inside the myelin sheath, then the axon will be completely protected from external shocks. Then the next function, what is the next function? Then the next function is, that is a minor function that need not be added. If you forget that point, it is of no less importance. The major important function is the myelin sheath accelerate impulses and act as an electric insulator. It provides nutrients and oxygen to the axon, and again it protects the axon from external shocks. Then a minor function is also there for a myelin sheath, that is, it gives white appearance to the neural parts. We had already studied that the part of the neuron which contains myelinated neurons is known as white matter, because the the lipid present in myelin sheath is white in color, shiny white in color. Because of this lipid, the myelin containing part will appear as white color. So that point regarding the function of myelin sheath is of less importance. If you wish, you can write it there. Otherwise, the four main other points are the important functions of myelin sheath, which is frequently asked in every question papers, either in the first term questions or in the model exams or in board exams. So this one, that is the functions of myelin sheath, is an important topic that you have to study. Then its formation is also an important one. How is a myelin sheath formed in nerve and in brain and spinal cord? Then we discussed about the white matter and gray matter. In the figure itself, you can see the first neuron. This is a myelinated axon, and the second one is non-myelinated axon. Then what is the difference between white matter and gray matter? Of course, the point that you must have to remember is white matter. The term related with white matter is myelinated neuron. If your answer contains this term, then you will be awarded with 1 mark. So what is gray matter? The part of the nerve where only cytons or cell body or non-myelinated axons. So which is the important term related with gray matter? That is the non-myelinated axon is the important term. So please don't forget to correlate these two words. That is, you have to correlate white matter with myelinated neurons and gray matter with non-myelinated neurons, and keep in mind that the area where myelinated neurons are present is known as white matter. Have you all remember in the last class I explained about the external appearance of brain? How will the brain appear externally? The external surface of the brain will be in gray color. That is, the external surface of the brain contains much amount of non-myelinated neurons, whereas the internal structure of brain is filled with myelinated neurons, because the processing of information takes place there. So myelinated neurons are found inside the brain, whereas in the case of spinal cord, myelinated neurons are present outside, because of that part of the spinal cord has to quickly process information. When you touch a hot substance, or while somebody beat you in your hand, you will withdraw the hand, because that type of responses are example for quick responses. Quick responses are under the control of spinal cord, So in order for the spinal cord to process that, the white matter of the spinal cord is concentrated at the outside portion of the spinal cord. അതായത് സ്പൈനൽ കോഡിൻ്റെ പുറത്ത് ആണ് മൈലിനേറ്റഡ് ഫൈബേഴ്സ് കൂടുതലായിട്ട് കാണപ്പെടുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ സ്പൈനൽ കോഡ് അപ്പിയേഴ്സ് ലൈക്ക് എ വൈറ്റ് സബ്സ്റ്റൻസ് എക്സ്റ്റേണലി ആൻഡ് ഇൻറ്റീരിയർ ഓഫ് ദ സ്പൈനൽ കോഡ് യു ക്യാൻ സീ നോൺ മൈലിനേറ്റഡ് ന്യൂറോൺ ബണ്ടിൽസ്. അപ്പോൾ ഗ്രേ മാറ്ററും വൈറ്റ് മാറ്ററും എന്താണെന്ന് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് മനസ്സിലായെന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുകയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ അടുത്ത ഒരു സെക്ഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് സിനാപ്സും ഇമ്പൾസ് ട്രാൻസ്മിഷനുമാണ്. ദാറ്റ് വി വിൽ ഡിസ്കസ് ലേറ്റർ. ദെൻ ഹൗ ഇസ് ഇമ്പൾസ് ട്രാൻസ്മിറ്റഡ് ത്രൂ എ ന്യൂറോൺ ഓർ ദ പാത്ത് വേ ഓഫ് ഇമ്പൾസ് ട്രാൻസ്മിഷൻ. ഇതും പരീക്ഷയ്ക്ക് എപ്പോഴും ചോദിക്കുന്ന ഒരു ചോദ്യമാണ്. ഇതിൻ്റെ ഈ ഒരു ഓർഡർ തെറ്റിച്ച് തരും, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഫില്ല് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് നിങ്ങളോട് ആവശ്യപ്പെടും. അപ്പോൾ എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഇമ്പൾസ് എലോങ് എ ന്യൂറോൺ, ഒരു ന്യൂറോണിലൂടെ, ഹൗ ഇസ് ഇമ്പൾസ് ട്രാൻസ്മിറ്റഡ് എലോങ് എ ന്യൂറോൺ, അതിൻ്റെ പാത്ത് വേ ചോദിക്കും. അപ്പോൾ യു ഹാവ് ടു റൈറ്റ് ദ ഇമ്പൾസ് ഓർ ദ സ്റ്റിമുലസ് ഫസ്റ്റ്, then the stimulus reaches the dendrite, then the stimulus will become impulse when it enters the neuron. Then after entering dendrite, the impulse will pass on to the dendron, then to the cell body, then to the axon, then the impulse will travel to the axonite, then it reaches the synaptic knob. Then what happens there? There in the synaptic knob, we studied that one of the chemical named neurotransmitter is present in the synaptic knob, and when the impulse reaches the synaptic knob, this chemical substance will be expelled out between the two neurons, and the junction between two neurons is known as synapse. This is the junction between two neurons, which is otherwise known as synapse, that we can discuss in the next class. Here you have to understand about the impulse transmission, how impulse are transmitted along a neuron. First it reaches the dendrite, then the impulse will reach the dendron. After that it reaches the cyton, which passes through the axon, then axonite, then to the synaptic knob. So the impulse transmission along a neuron will be completed, or along a neuron. If the question is like this, that is explain the pathway of impulse transmission along a neuron, you have to write till the synaptic knob. Then the next 3 points we will be discussed when impulse transmission between two neurons is asked for exam. That is, when impulse transmission between two neurons happens, the first neuron dendrite portion will receive the stimulus, then it passes through dendron, cell body, axon, axonite, synaptic knob. When the impulse reaches the synaptic knob, a chemical substance will be liberated outside, and this chemical substance will carry on the impulse to the next neuron. There you have to study about the synapse and its function, that we will discuss in the next class. So in today's class we discussed about the other 3 main functions of myelin sheath, and also about the impulse transmission along a neuron, not between the neuron. We discussed only about the impulse transmission along a neuron.